agreed with the fact that we need to be recklessly printing money to help out people who might want to decide to buy a third BMW this year. That is not what the stimulus package is for. The lockdown measures
never said I oppose fracking. Show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website.
Live from Clark Studios in Rochester, New York. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
It was only a few months ago where Joe Biden was on the campaign trail and he very clearly said, I will not lock this country down. He said it in front of national television. He said it in front of hundreds of millions of people. He came out after Trump very clearly said, we're never locking down. Biden decided to follow suit and says, okay, fine, we won't lock down either. It ended up being just another one of Biden's big lies to fool the Democrats into voting him. Because now, after months and months and months and almost a year of following the science, Biden now goes back on his promise to the American people and is now contemplating locking this country down once again. As if the first lockdown didn't send this country into financial ruin, we're now going to have another try at it. And Florida is now under immense attack because they've been thriving. So it's no wonder that Governor DeSantis is furious with the decision. They thrive on tourism. Governor DeSantis has led the charge and said, we are not locking down this state. And guess what? They've done phenomenal as far as COVID has been concerned in the grand scheme of all things. Today we start the show by looking at Governor DeSantis attacking back and saying, we are not going to stand for this. We are not going to lock down. We've been doing well as a country or as a state. We've followed the science. But the Democrats, nope. They're embarrassed by it. They're ashamed of the fact that Democrat states have remained open and are so much worse off than Florida, who has been fully open. So now they're deciding to hit Florida for absolutely no reason at all. And DeSantis is not going to take it. Let's take a look. So today on Fox News, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis lashed out at the Biden administration Thursday following reports the White House may seek domestic travel bans to counter new strains of COVID-19 from spreading nationwide. So now Biden is considering a domestic travel ban, not letting people in and out, locking down Americans so we're not allowed to travel either, to isolate COVID. So what gives? Did we not learn the first time that lockdowns don't really do anything? I mean, this entire time we've been masking up, we've been social distancing, kids have stayed home from school, we've been following the science, but here we are. We want more lockdowns. We've looked at the CDC data, and it's very clearly says and states that Florida's doing pretty well, all things considered, compared to other states that have been fully locked down. So DeSantis is obviously furious over this fact. They've done a great job. He says, quote, any attempt to restrict or lock down Florida by the federal government would be an attack on our state done purely for political purposes. And that's what's going on here. The Democrats are furious by the fact that Florida has done so well. They can't just give Governor DeSantis the credit he deserves for doing a great job with the lockdown. Nope, not good enough, because New York, California, Democrat-run states have lost serious face over this situation, and they are embarrassed. Newsom, Cuomo are livid and can't stand the fact that Florida is doing so well. And their boy Joe now needs to jump on the Democratic bandwagon and say, you know what? You're right. we got to kind of do something to Florida because Florida's putting us all to shame. So here they are now single-handedly attacking the likes of Florida, who thrives off tourism, and again has done a very good job. Airlines have actually rerouted a lot of their flights to go through Florida because they're sick of the rest of the states being locked down. And even after the rerouting and the beaches being open and the kids in school and the Super Bowl being played there with tens of thousands of fans in the stadium, they've still come out on top. And that's what the Democrats can't stand. So now they got to make an example out of Florida. They need to put Florida in the same disastrous situation as the rest of the Democrat states so those Democrat governors don't feel sorry for themselves. Let's see what the Keyboard Warrior Cam, or what the Americans have to say over at the Keyboard Warrior Cam about the insanity of Joe Biden putting us all on a lockdown once again. So Sanders says, right, but they want all the illegals to come right in. There is no America first. Thousands out of work, food lines, homeless on the street, veterans in need, but that's okay. Bring in all the illegals when we are not taking care of our own people. It's insane. Satan is controlling the Democratic Party. The world needs a revival and needs to turn back to God. The Super Bowl halftime was disgusting, with Satan being cast down from heaven, going down to the pit, and coming out with all his demons straight out of the Revelation. All the hate that is going on now makes me hurt. She got a bit extreme on that post, but what I do agree with here is the fact that she's right. Thousands are out of work. Illegal immigrants are being let in by the tens of thousands, yet we're once again going to put America last. It's just a typical Biden move. Let's put everybody ahead of Americans. Let's let illegal immigrants in without being COVID tested. But if you live in Florida, you can't go anywhere now, even though you've done pretty well. But still, New York hasn't, and Cuomo's crying like a little baby again, so I need to take care of my boy. So, DeSantis, lock down your state. Where do they get off thinking like this? Because this is the mindset of the Democrats. This is what goes through their head. It's like they sit around a little, their little Democrat table here and whip out their Democrat playbook and go through their list of really bad ideas and consistently roll them out to see which idea can screw the American people even more. Well, they're doing a pretty good job because every day seems to get worse and worse. Rubin says, this ain't a political issue to contain the spread of COVID, rather a health issue. If we want to return to normalcy sooner, then I believe citizens and government of all levels should do their part. Even both parties have different views on combating COVID. This is where I disagree. It is a political issue. If it was a scientific issue, Florida, we wouldn't even be locking down anybody. We would have opened up New York State, California, Michigan, Chicago, and every other city or state that's been on lockdown. This is very much a political issue. It's always been a political issue, and I'll prove it to you. Let's take a look at the CDC tracker cam and see what the COVID data tells us, which very clearly highlights how insane these lockdowns have been. So, taking a look at the COVID tracker cam, the key point to highlight here is that Florida, who is being singled out here amongst the domestic lockdown measures that Joe Biden is considering putting into play, New York State, this is a chart here. New York State, since January 20th, this is all the way back to January 21st, 2020. So we're going back to the beginning of COVID time. And we're going to take a look at the ridiculousness here that lockdowns don't work. New York, since January 21st, 2020, has had a total of 45,000 deaths. Fully locked down, fully masked up, 6 feet, social distancing, bars closing early. Everybody stay home, cancel Thanksgiving, you know the deal, yada, yada, yada. 45,000 deaths in New York State. So Florida, fully open, you'd think Florida would have like millions of deaths, right? After all, they've been fully open, the beach has been open, airlines have rerouted their flights to go through Florida because they remain to be a very attractive international and domestic hub right now. Schools are open, so you'd think cases would be off the hook. Let's take a look at the Florida cases. Well, lo and behold, only 28,000 deaths. 28,000 total deaths in the state of Florida since January 21st, 2020. That's nearly half the number of deaths from New York State. But it's warm, you might argue. COVID doesn't kill in warmer climates. Okay, if you want to play that game, let's head over to California. Take a look at California. Well, California's warm. They get a little chilly at night because they are essentially a desert area, but it's not too different of a climate than Florida. So the argument is busted because, as you can clearly see here, California, 45,000 deaths. California and New York State, the two most locked down states in the entire country, have the highest death toll. California, 45,000, New York, 45,000. Again, it's following the Democratic playbook of insanity to a T, which is why they have identical results. What about Texas? Texas has been fairly opened. They haven't really masked up, haven't been having to follow social distancing guidelines as strictly as the Democrat-run states have. So let's take a look at Texas. It's a fairly large state after all, heavily populated. Texas, 39,000. Still less than both New York and California. Florida takes the cake, though, as far as success is concerned. They're doing phenomenal with the vaccine rollouts. They've done phenomenal with letting their state be open, letting their economy flourish. Florida's got it made. It's no wonder that most of the country is rushing down to little old Florida, although the Floridians aren't too happy about it. They've, quote, said, "You're welcome to come down here, but leave your politics up north. We want nothing to do with it." And rightly so. They don't need the liberal poison being filtered right through their state. They're a very happy conservative state, and they like to keep it that way. So if you're thinking about moving down to Florida, if you are a liberal, keep your politics up north, as per Florida's request, of course. So New York, 45,000 deaths. California, 45,000 deaths. Texas, 39,000 deaths. Florida, only 28,000 deaths. So, as we can very clearly see, lockdowns do not work. And the science and the data continues to tell us just that. So why children are out of school, why we continue to be locked down. There's now, I guess, a new strain of coronavirus out. It's like we can't just get on with our lives, can we? There always needs to be something to suppress us and hold us back right now. If you haven't noticed, since the beginning of COVID, no matter how hard Americans resist the lockdown measures, no matter how hard we resist the entire movement, it's almost as if they're coming out or they have to make something more dramatic, more severe to say, actually, no, we're not done yet. Things get a little bit better. No, we're not done yet. Things get a little bit better. No, hold on, not done yet. We got a new strain now. New strain. It's broke out in the UK. Look over here, everybody. Don't mind us over here. It's like this constant circus act that personally I can't keep up with. Now we've got a new strain, which is where Biden is now saying, aha, great. Let's use this to now hit Florida. So let's take a look at the article and see how Fox News reported on this situation and why Florida is so furious with how Biden and the Dems continue to want to play politics. So Florida Governor DeSantis calls threats of domestic travel ban unconstitutional, unwise, and unjust. Yes, he's absolutely right. The whole thing's been unconstitutional. Mask wearing, social distancing, closing our businesses, destroying lives, keeping kids out of school. All of this has been unconstitutional. But as usual, the Democrats don't feel the need to abide by the Constitution. So it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And now here we are, the middle of winter, barely a single flu case, and COVID continues to skyrocket. And just when we thought we beat it, another strain comes exploding onto the scene. So Florida lashed out. So obviously, Governor DeSantis doesn't like the news. He's furious about it. Hold on a second. We've done an amazing job. This is a direct attack on states like mine who have done a very good job. We do not need to be canceled. I don't care what's going on up in New York. I don't care what's going over in California. It's not my fault. They can't get their acts together. So now you got DeSantis lashing out at the Biden administration Thursday following reports from the White House who may seek domestic travel bans to counter, and here's the kicker, to counter new strains of COVID-19 from spreading nationwide. So there's this new, more contagious strain, a deadlier strain. By the way, is the vaccine that we just spent billions of dollars on going to be able to counter this new strain, or are all those vaccines now completely off the table? Because we just spent a year going mental over a virus that supposedly is now changed, and we don't even know if the vaccines are going to work now against this new virus. But that's what people seem to forget. Viruses aren't going away. They're going to evolve. They're going to change. I'm no doctor, but I do know that viruses usually come and go on their own, and that we can't hide under a rock to get away from it. At some point, it's going to get you. So any attempt, DeSantis goes on to say, any attempt to restrict or lock down Florida by the federal government would be an attack on our state, done purely for political purposes. And I agree. He then goes on to say it would be unconstitutional, it would be unwise, and it would be unjust. So DeSantis decided to go on camera and discuss exactly why he feels it would be absolute insanity to lock down Florida, a state like Florida who has done so well. Let's see what he has to say. He backs it up with a significant amount of science. And seeing that we're supposed to be following the science, we better listen to DeSantis.
There was some type of report about potential travel restrictions on Americans and on Floridians, and I think it's an absurd report that they would be doing that. I think it would be unconstitutional, it would be unwise, and it would be unjust. And if you think about it, restricting the right of Americans to travel freely throughout our country while allowing illegal aliens to pour across the southern border unmolested would be a ridiculous but very damaging farce. So we will oppose it 100%. It would not be based in science. It would purely be a political attack against the people of Florida. And it's unclear why they would even try talking about that. Just look at the COVID situation in the state of Florida. So since December, the last couple months, Florida's cases per capita compared to the rest of the country, 28. 27 other states higher per capita cases, and for the entire pandemic, it's a similar story. Hospitalizations per capita over this time period, Florida ranks 30th. 29 other states have higher per capita hospitalizations. Fatalities per capita for this same period, Florida ranks 42nd. 41 states have higher per capita fatality. So since December 1st, well over half the country has seen much worse COVID results than here in Florida. But all you have to do too is just look at some of the trends. ED visits for COVID-like illness is down 60% in Florida over the last 30 days. That's the number one indicator for COVID spread. Hospitalized patients are down about 35% in Florida statewide over the last 3 weeks. And don't forget, over the winter, Florida peaked at much less level than we did over the summer months. and we were way less per capita than a lot of lockdown states that are always cited as being, quote, the right way to do it. Meanwhile, we vaccinated the most people of any state in the age bracket where most of the fatalities occur, age 65 and plus. We have now reporting about 1.6 million seniors that have received a shot. That's about 35% of our gigantic senior population, which is almost 4.5 million. And we are #1 for shots for seniors. We've done 75% of all shots administered in Florida have gone to senior citizens. And the percentages of seniors that have been vaccinated is one of the highest in the country, and it continues to grow every day. And so any attempt to restrict or lock down Florida by the federal government would be an attack on our state, done purely for political purposes. Now, we've had to stand by Floridians over these many, many months, even in difficult circumstances, even when it was not easy to do. We've saved their jobs time and time again. We've preserved small businesses time and time again, and we preserve the right of parents to send their children to school in person. You look around the country, a lot of kids haven't been in school since March of 2020. It's an absolute disgrace. We led very early on that, and we're much better for it. So we've had to stand by Floridians throughout, time and again, and we will do so going forward. We will not back down, and if anyone tries to harm Floridians or target us, we will respond very swiftly.
So clearly, DeSantis is the MVP of governors in the United States right now. He has destroyed and shattered every record, and he has put New York and California to absolute shame. It's no wonder that they are furious right now with the fact that they, one, are being targeted, and by targeted I mean because of the fact that so much transportation goes through their state. So Washington, yes, is going to come down hard on Florida, and they don't think or feel there's any justification, and rightly so, because look it, we just heard him talk numbers. Let's break these numbers down for a second. First of all, it's insane that illegal aliens, illegal immigrants are going to be able to come freely across those borders with no vaccination, with no testing. They get to come and go with our whole open borders thing going on right now, yet Americans are going to have to be locked down. So that's insanity metric number one. He then goes on to say, since December, Florida is number 28 as far as cases per capita is concerned. That means 27 more states are worse off than Florida. So for a state that's completely open for business, children in school, Florida has 27 other states that are worse off than they are. Hospitalization cases, they're number 30th in the country. 29 other states are worse off than Florida. Fatalities, 42nd in the country. And this is it's a mind-blowing statistic to me. You'd think fatalities would be through the roof in Florida. The winter months, Super Bowl was just down there. No big super spreader event that we've heard of. You'd think fatalities would be through the roof, but they're not. They list as number 42 in the entire country, cases per capita. 41 states are worse off than Florida when it comes to fatalities. 60% in the last 30 days of emergency department visits, COVID related, are down. So they are down 60%. They're down 35% in the last 30 days on hospitalizations, and they've vaccinated more people than any other state. DeSantis is the MVP. You can't even dispute it. You can't argue it. You can't argue it. And it's no wonder that Cuomo is so embarrassed right now. It's no wonder that Newsom has been humiliated. Instead of writing books and going to get Emmy Awards, Cuomo may have wanted to fly down to Florida and sat around a table with DeSantis and said, hey man, can I borrow some of the conservative playbook for a second? Because you guys seem to be doing a lot better than we are in these Democrat-run states. It would behoove Biden to actually listen to DeSantis for a minute. Instead of shaming Republicans, you'd think he might want to know and take advice from a governor who has got it together on so many levels. Because according to the stats, they're number one shots for seniors. 75% of all shots have been given to seniors. 1.6 million seniors in Florida have been vaccinated. 35% of all seniors have been vaccinated. They are blowing New York and California out of the water. Blowing them out of the water. This is what happens when you work together versus thinking or working like a dictatorship or a monarch, as our King Cuomo here in New York seems to think it is. So Florida's doing amazing. The Democrats don't care. They want to lock everybody down. They want to target Florida. They want to go after them. They want to close their hubs, their routes. They want to screw up what the airlines have worked so hard at diverting to throughout the COVID situation. And Joe Biden, who promised us, if you remember, he promised us during his campaign he would not be locking down the United States. But guess what? The only way to go back on his word, so we can't straight up call him a liar, is to say, well, hold on a second. I didn't know anything about this new strain. I was talking about the old strain. Now we've got a new strain, so I'm going to kind of latch onto that BS, and we're going to ride that one out and fool the American people so they can't attack me for going back on my word. Because that's exactly what just happened. He's just used the new strain to now get out of the fact that he is going back on his word. But I don't care how you spin it. A lockdown's a lockdown. I don't care what strain it is. If we're on our 30th strain or 50th strain, you can call it whatever you want. The fact of the matter is, Biden said we would not be locking down. So here we are now considering another lockdown. Let's go back to the article and see what else Fox News has to say about the insanity. So obviously Jen Psaki was pressed during a Thursday brief about the alleged consideration of a domestic travel ban. Here's Jen's reply. We are always considering what steps are necessary to keep the American people safe, but we are not currently in the process of. No decisions have been made around additional public health measures that would delay or would change, I should say, domestic travel considerations. Now, here's where they bring the new strain in. According to the CDC, in the number of cases of the new B117 strain, a much more highly infectious variant of the coronavirus, which was first reported in the UK. As soon as I heard the UK report this, I thought, oh my God, here we go again. This thing's going to be here. More lockdowns, more going back on our word, more excuses and justifications to shut businesses down once again, more reasons to justify keeping kids home. Florida's case per capita compared to the rest of the country is only 28. 27 other states are far worse off than Florida. Why aren't we taking our cues from Florida? Why aren't we looking at the science and deciding that lockdowns don't work? They have failed us. They've destroyed our businesses. They've ruined our lives. Children are suffering. Suicides are up. Families are being wrecked at home. Divorce is through the roof because everybody's on top of each other. I think the only industry, the only profession that have actually come out on top of this are divorce attorneys. The science does not warrant any of this. DeSantis has proved it. The state of Florida has proved it. The CDC has even proved it. Let's go back to the keyboard warrior cam and see what the other Americans have to say about the ridiculousness of a potential another lockdown. Now, Governor DeSantis has received a lot of criticism from his own people, to be honest. And most of them are probably Democrats because conservatives seem to be happy with the decisions that he's made, but there's a few people who are not too happy with it, and they've given DeSantis a lot of criticism, despite what the science has said. They just feel the whole world should be locked down because, who knows, maybe they're just not social people and they'd rather hide inside their bedrooms or basements for the rest of their life. So not everybody's happy, but Alvendina says, all of you who disagree with this man, you have the choice to move to California or New York. Trust me, you don't want to come up here. You have the choice to move to California or New York and be locked up for the rest of your life, to keep your children locked up in a house, to be unemployed, and wait for a government stimulus check. Let the rest of us support him and enjoy life. Best governor. That's exactly right. Listen, if you want to stay locked down, if you want to be unemployed and collect your COVID checks, go for it. If you want to mask up for the rest of your life, go ahead. Nobody's stopping you. But stop telling the rest of the world what to do. Nobody cares what any of you lockdown advocates want to do with the rest of your life. That is up to you. But you can't expect the rest of America to be dragged down with your thought process. The CDC has even said it's safe to go back to schools. Teachers don't want to go back to schools. That should now be a situation where the government steps in and says, if you don't get back to school, you need to be fired. Biden even said he was going to get these kids back into school until 2 days ago, where he came out and said, actually, well, if we can even get 50% of the schools back 1 day a week, that'd be a great start. Biden, we are already way past one in-person session per week. So what Biden's basically done is made things worse than what they already are. He set a target that actually makes us all go backwards. If you haven't paid attention to that, you might want to go back and look at what he's saying about getting kids back to school. It's a total disaster, and he's completely gone back on everything he originally said. So Alvendina is right. All of you disagree with this man. You have the choice to move to California or New York and be locked up for the rest of your life. Keep your children locked in a house, to be unemployed, and to wait for a government stimulus check. Let the rest of us support him and enjoy life. If you're watching this show from Florida, do not come up to New York. You're not going to want to. We are miserable. We're not happy. People are going broke. My friends' family are losing jobs. Kids are not in school. It's disastrous. The last place you want to come to is these Democrat-run states. Mary Lou says the Biden administration will use the coronavirus to impose their agenda on everyone in every state for as long as we are willing to lay down, roll over, and comply with their tyranny. Thank God for governors like Ron DeSantis. And she's right. Mary Lou is absolutely right. This is why they're now attacking the entire United States right now, because states like Florida have thrived. And New Yorkers and California are getting furious by that fact. We are screaming at our governors to open up the damn state based off of what we've witnessed down in Florida. So now, of course, the Biden administration saying, well, we can't have that. We can't have the Republicans making us look bad. So everybody now has to be locked down. And that's where DeSantis is saying, no, that's not okay. It's completely unacceptable. We're not going to stand for it. And I hope he has lawyers on it right now. And I hope they win the constitutional lawsuit for all of our sake. To be honest, the best thing that could probably happen at this point is the Biden administration lock down every state in the country so that all the Republican states rally their lawyers and serve lawsuits against Washington and ultimately win the case. That way, it's game over as far as the lockdowns are concerned. If we have to get to that point, then I'm all for it. If we need DeSantis to be our man to back the rally against lockdowns, then let's go. We just might need to see some of these conservative governors stand up for the rest of the country. But that's not going to happen until Biden forces them or backs them into a corner. It might just be the best thing for this country. Let's see what the other keyboard warriors have to say about the insanity of another potential lockdown. Americans won't be able to travel to Florida, says Michelle. But illegals can take over and flood us with COVID, other diseases, and violence. The sick logic in this is being stupid. That's our government. I have to agree with her. Our government is not acting logically right now. They're not acting wisely. Dorothy says the many, many evil actions of the Democrats are going to force a war. That's why the razor wire and thousands of military around the Capitol. Interesting thought. They've had all this plan. It is plainly a coup. You have to wonder, why are the National Guard still in D.C.? Why are they there? Why do we have thousands of National Guard troops in the Capitol? Clearly, we know an impeachment conviction for Trump is not going to happen. The Republicans have made that very clear. No amount of evidence is going to change their mind. So where's the threat? Why are the Democrats so nervous right now? Why do they continue to fence off the Capitol? What are they so afraid of? Merle says, who gives Biden so much wrong info? How can you lock down a state that is doing great while you got Cali and New York City doing so badly and no one even said anything to them? It's true. Who's giving Biden this info? Why do the Democrats continue to paint this pandemic so much worse than it really is? Because as we said, in Florida, 60% in the last 30 days, Florida is down 60% emergency department COVID visits. They are down 35% COVID-related hospitalizations. So I don't think this is a nationwide pandemic. I just think that certain states like New York and California can't get their act together for whatever reason. Maybe it's the way they're being governed. Maybe they're not playing as a team. That's what happens in a dictatorship. The people who work under you tend to not really want to listen to you and eventually end up ratting you out, which is what we just had yesterday when Cuomo's top aide came out against him and admitted they fudged the numbers. That's what happens when you don't have team players on your side. Greg says Biden's puppet masters want civil war. Floridians are very fortunate that they have a governor with brains, common sense, and the backbone to advocate for the citizens of Florida. And Dylan says 100% abuse of power. Even the audacity to consider such acts should be condemned entirely. That attribution of power to the federal government is one of the most dangerous things Americans could ever do. There is no excuse for the federal government to undermine the functionality of any state. Joe Biden is tapping on a very explosive door. Shut it down. He raises a good point, actually. I thought the president couldn't dictate what goes on in everybody's individual state. At least that's what we saw with Trump. Every single time Trump wanted to send in the National Guard, he couldn't. The states refused his support. So it's got to work both ways. You can't just deny obedience to a Republican president, but fall to your knees when a Democratic president says so. That's not how it works. So if the Biden administration does start dictating its instruction to the rest of the country, I hope that I see the Republican states stand up to Biden and refuse any guidance or instruction the same way that all the Democratic states did to Trump for his entire 4-year presidency. We better see nothing but that. So, lockdowns don't work. Florida's thriving. New York and California are a disaster. Nobody wants Cuomo or Newsom as their governor anymore. If we could trade DeSantis, we'd buy him out in a million years. But unfortunately, Cuomo decided to bankrupt our state. Newsom's pretty much bankrupted California as well. And the moral of the story is Democratic governors have no idea what they're doing. As a matter of fact, I really don't think at this point the entire Biden administration knows what they're doing. And Biden, once again, has gone back on his word. And here we are discussing lockdowns for a virus that has a 99.8% survival rate. The whole thing is absolute madness and insanity at best. Thank you guys so much for watching the show. It's been an awesome week. We've had a lot to uncover. Let's see how this Trump impeachment works out. When the votes come in, nothing's going to happen. The thing was dead on arrival. The Senate, we showed that first piece of nonsense evidence a few days ago. You guys have a great rest of the weekend, and we will see you next week here at 3. Make sure you tune in. We stream live Facebook and YouTube. We're also on Amazon Music, iTunes, and Spotify. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to You Made It Political with Matt Clark. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show, or leave us a review on iTunes. And if you like our show or want to know more, check out YouMadeItPolitical.com.